My beloved child. There is something I need you to hear today, something that has been hidden beneath silence, buried beneath unspoken thoughts, and carried within the heart of someone who cares about you more deeply than you realize. You may have sensed it. Not through words. Not through actions. But through those strange moments when their expression changed for just a second, when they looked at you a little longer than usual. When it felt as though they wanted to say something, yet chose not to. That silence was not empty. It was carrying a question. A concern. A feeling they did not know how to explain. And before your mind begins to wander into fear, listen carefully. This concern does not erase their love. It does not weaken their affection. It does not make them want to leave. In fact, the reason this has weighed on their heart so heavily is because their feelings for you have become stronger than they expected. That is why this message is reaching you now. Because what has remained hidden is slowly approaching the surface. The person who loves you most has been quietly worried about one thing connected to your appearance. Not because they seek perfection. Not because they expect you to become someone else. But because appearances often carry stories that few people understand. And this person has been trying to understand a story they cannot fully read. For a long time, they convinced themselves it was nothing. They told themselves they were imagining it. They tried to ignore the feeling. Yet each time they looked at you, the question returned. Not louder. But deeper. What makes this situation unusual is that their concern has very little to do with what others see. Most people around you would never notice it. Many would overlook it completely. But this person notices details. Tiny details. The kind that reveal emotions hidden beneath smiles. The kind that reveal battles no one talks about. The kind that reveal truths that words often fail to express. And lately, they have noticed something. Something that keeps pulling their attention back. Something that makes them wonder whether you have been carrying more than you admit. More stress. More pressure. More emotional weight. More exhaustion. They have begun to suspect that what appears on the outside may be reflecting something happening within. Yet they do not know if they are right. And that uncertainty has created a quiet struggle inside their heart. Because they care. Far more than they have revealed. Far more than they have confessed. There have been moments when they almost spoke up. Moments when the words reached the edge of their lips. Moments when they wanted to ask if you were truly okay. But then doubt interrupted them. What if I offend them? What if they misunderstand me? What if I say the wrong thing? So instead of speaking, they stayed silent. And silence can sometimes create mysteries that become larger than reality itself. What they have been worrying about may not be what you think. It is not rooted in judgment. It is not rooted in rejection. It is not rooted in disappointment. It is rooted in concern. A concern they have carried alone. Yet there is another layer to this story. A layer even they do not fully understand. Because the more they focus on this one thing about your appearance, the more they discover something unexpected. What first caught their attention is no longer the only thing occupying their mind. Something else has begun to emerge. Something much more powerful. Something that is quietly changing the way they see you. And when this realization fully reaches their heart, it may alter everything between you in ways neither of you anticipated. But before that revelation arrives, there is something important you must understand about what they have recently noticed. Because during a very specific moment, one they have replayed again and again in their mind, they saw something that completely changed the direction of their thoughts. And what they saw left them with a question they can no longer ignore. Part 2. The moment I am speaking of did not seem important when it happened. No crowd stopped to watch. No great announcement echoed through the air. The world continued moving as if nothing had changed. Yet for this person, everything paused. Because for a brief second, they saw something in you that did not match the image they had been carrying in their mind. And that discovery unsettled them. Not in a negative way, but in a way that forced them to question every assumption they had quietly made. You see, people often believe they understand what another person is feeling simply by observing them. They study expressions. They notice appearances. They connect small details together and create stories. But sometimes those stories are incomplete. Sometimes they are entirely wrong. And that is exactly what this person has begun to realize. The thing about your appearance that once concerned them started to lose its power the moment they witnessed something unexpected. Perhaps it was a smile that appeared when no one was looking. Perhaps it was the way you showed kindness without expecting recognition. Perhaps it was a moment of quiet strength during a difficult day. Whatever it was, it revealed a side of you they had never fully seen before. And suddenly, their concern became tangled with admiration. Now they found themselves facing a contradiction. How could the very thing that worried them exist alongside such beauty of spirit? How could someone carry visible signs of struggle and still radiate so much light? The answer was not obvious. And because they could not understand it, they became even more curious about you. This is where their feelings deepened. Not because you appeared flawless. Not because you matched some impossible standard. But because they began seeing evidence of something rare. Authenticity. The world is filled with people who carefully construct images. People who hide every imperfection. People who spend enormous energy appearing stronger than they truly feel. Yet you, whether intentionally or not, have revealed pieces of your real self. And that honesty carries a kind of beauty that cannot be manufactured. Still, their concern has not completely disappeared. That is the part many would misunderstand. The question remains in their heart. They still wonder if there is something you have been carrying alone. They still wonder if there are burdens hidden behind your daily routines. They still wonder if the signs they notice are pointing toward a story you have never spoken aloud. Sometimes they catch themselves imagining conversations that have never happened. Conversations where they finally ask what has been troubling them. Conversations where you finally reveal what you have been keeping inside. Conversations where misunderstandings dissolve and truth takes their place. But then hesitation returns. And so they continue watching. Not because they are judging you. Because they care. The difference between judgment and concern is enormous. One pushes people away. The other pulls people closer. And whether you realize it or not, this person has been drawn closer by what they have observed. That is why their thoughts have become so complicated. The more they focus on what worries them, the more reasons they discover to value you. The more questions they ask, the more respect they develop. The more they notice, the more difficult it becomes to imagine life without your presence. Yet there is something even stranger happening beneath the surface. Something they have not confessed to anyone. Not their friends. Not their family. Not even themselves. Because admitting it would force them to acknowledge a truth that feels almost overwhelming. The thing they once viewed as a concern may actually be connected to one of the reasons they feel so deeply attached to you. And that realization has shaken them. They are standing at the edge of an emotional discovery. A discovery that could transform the way they see your appearance forever. But before they reach that conclusion, a recent conversation introduced a completely new perspective. A perspective they never expected to hear. And the words spoken during that conversation have been echoing in their mind ever since. Because someone pointed out a detail about you that they had been unable to see on their own. A detail so powerful that it may completely change what happens next. Part 3. Sometimes the most important truths do not arrive through dramatic signs. They arrive through ordinary conversations. A passing comment. An unexpected observation. A few simple words that refuse to leave the mind. And that is exactly what happened. The person who loves you most was not searching for answers that day. They were not looking for a revelation. Yet somehow, it found them. During a conversation they never planned to remember, someone mentioned something about you. At first, the words seemed insignificant. Easy to dismiss. Easy to forget. But the more they reflected on them, the more those words began to uncover something hidden. Because the observation was not about your appearance itself. It was about what your appearance communicates. There is a difference. A very important difference. Most people see surfaces. Few people see messages. And according to this unexpected perspective, there is a message woven into the way you carry yourself. A message your loved one had overlooked. A message that changed everything. The person speaking said something along these lines. Maybe what you're noticing isn't a flaw at all. Those words landed with surprising force. Not a flaw. The thought lingered. What if they had been looking at the situation from the wrong angle? What if the thing that concerned them was actually revealing something meaningful? Something beautiful? Something worthy of appreciation rather than worry? Suddenly, old assumptions began to crack. The picture they had built in their mind was no longer stable. And when old perspectives begin to fall apart, new ones often emerge. That night, they found themselves thinking about you more than usual. Not with concern alone. Not with curiosity alone. But with a growing sense of wonder. Because they started connecting memories. Moments they had previously overlooked. Little details. Little interactions. Little glimpses of who you truly are. And each memory seemed to point toward the same conclusion. There is more strength in you than people realize. Far more. The signs they had focused on before suddenly appeared different. What once looked like weakness began to resemble resilience. What once appeared uncertain began to reveal courage. What once raised questions began providing answers. Yet the deeper they looked, the more emotional the realization became. Because they started recognizing something they had never fully appreciated. You have survived seasons that many people know nothing about. Battles leave marks. Challenges leave traces. Growth leaves evidence. And sometimes the things visible on the outside are not signs of damage. They are proof that someone kept moving forward. That understanding changed the atmosphere of their thoughts. Their heart softened. Their perspective widened. Their feelings deepened. But with this new understanding came a new challenge. A challenge they did not expect. Because once they stopped focusing on what worried them, they became aware of something much harder to ignore. Their attachment to you. The truth was becoming impossible to escape. You occupied their thoughts more often than they admitted. Your happiness affected their mood more than they realized. Your presence carried more significance than they had allowed themselves to acknowledge. And this frightened them. Not because love is frightening. But because genuine love always carries vulnerability. The moment you truly care about someone, you risk being hurt. The moment someone becomes important, their absence begins to matter. And this person has reached that threshold. Whether they planned to or not. Whether they wanted to or not. Their heart has crossed a line. Now they find themselves wondering questions that never existed before. Questions about the future. Questions about possibilities. Questions about where this connection might lead. Yet even now, there remains one final misunderstanding. One final piece of the puzzle that has not fully fallen into place. Because while they have begun seeing your appearance through new eyes, they still do not know something essential. Something only heaven has seen clearly all along. They do not yet understand the deeper reason why this particular detail caught their attention in the first place. It was never random. It was never superficial. It was connected to a lesson their own heart needed to learn. And when that realization finally arrives, it will not only change how they see you. It will change how they see themselves. The moment of understanding is closer than they think. In fact, signs of it have already begun appearing around them. Small signs. Quiet signs. The kind that seem ordinary until everything suddenly makes sense. And the next sign, the one they are about to receive, may become the turning point they remember for years to come. Part 4. There are moments in life when a person believes they are observing someone else, only to discover they have been learning about themselves all along. This is where the story takes an unexpected turn. Because the person who loves you most is beginning to understand that their concern was never only about your appearance. It was also a mirror. A reflection. A doorway into parts of their own heart they had not fully explored. For a long time, they thought they were trying to understand you. But lately, a different question has been emerging. Why did this matter to them so much? Why did one small detail capture their attention so powerfully? Why did it stay in their thoughts when so many other things faded away? The answer did not arrive all at once. It came in fragments. Little realizations. Quiet moments. Unexpected flashes of clarity. And each one revealed something surprising. The things we notice most intensely in others often touch something deeply personal within ourselves. That truth can be uncomfortable. Yet it can also be transformative. Without realizing it, this person had been carrying expectations. Not only about others, but about themselves. Expectations about how strength should look. How confidence should appear. How beauty should be defined. How life should unfold. And somewhere along the way, those expectations became walls. Invisible walls. Walls that limited what they could see. Walls that prevented them from recognizing beauty in its many forms. But you, without even trying, have been challenging those walls. Every time they looked at you. Every time they thought about you. Every time they remembered your resilience, your kindness, your spirit. Something inside those walls weakened. And now they are beginning to see what heaven has seen all along. The most valuable things about a person are rarely the easiest things to notice. Character is often hidden. Strength is often quiet. Grace is often overlooked. And love, true love, learns to see beyond first impressions. This realization has not arrived without emotion. In fact, there have been moments recently when they felt overwhelmed by it. Moments when they replayed old memories and saw them differently. Moments when they recognized how unfairly they had judged certain situations. Moments when gratitude quietly replaced uncertainty. Because the more honestly they examine their heart, the more they recognize a powerful truth. The thing that once concerned them is becoming less important with every passing day. Something else has taken its place. Appreciation. Respect. Admiration. Connection. And those feelings are growing. Yet there is still one final piece they have not spoken aloud. One truth they have kept locked away. Not because they want to hide it, but because admitting it would make everything real. It would force them to acknowledge how much you truly matter. You see, concern can be hidden. Curiosity can be hidden. Even affection can sometimes be hidden. But eventually, the heart reaches a point where hiding becomes exhausting. And this person is approaching that point. Faster than they realize. There have already been subtle signs. Small changes in the way they respond to you. Small changes in the way they think about you. Small changes in the way they imagine the future. What once felt uncertain now feels increasingly clear. What once felt complicated now feels increasingly simple. And the simplicity of that realization is what surprises them most. Because after all the questions, after all the overthinking, after all the silent worries, they are beginning to understand something beautiful. The detail they focused on was never the defining part of who you are. Not even close. It was merely the doorway that led them to discover everything else. And what they discovered on the other side has become impossible to ignore. But the most emotional moment has not happened yet. A moment is approaching when they will stop analyzing. Stop questioning. Stop searching for explanations. And simply listen to what their heart has been trying to tell them all along. When that moment arrives, a decision will follow. A decision that could change the energy between you forever. And the message hidden within that decision is far more powerful than anything they have admitted so far. Part 5. Not every life-changing decision is announced with words. Sometimes it begins in silence. A silence so deep that a person can finally hear what their heart has been saying all along. That moment is approaching now. The person who loves you most has spent so much time thinking, analyzing, questioning, and second-guessing themselves that they have become exhausted by their own uncertainty. They have gone in circles. One day believing they understood their feelings. The next day doubting everything. One moment focusing on a concern. The next moment realizing that concern no longer holds the same weight it once did. And through all of this, one truth has remained. You. No matter where their thoughts wandered, they always found their way back to you. That is not something they can ignore anymore. Because there comes a point when the heart becomes louder than the mind. A point when emotions stop asking for permission. A point when love refuses to stay hidden in the shadows. This person is standing very close to that point. Closer than you know. Recently, they have begun noticing something that surprises even them. When they imagine their future, your presence appears naturally within it. Not because they force it. Not because they plan it. But because their heart has started treating you as someone important. Someone significant. Someone whose happiness genuinely matters. And once that realization takes root, it changes everything. The concerns that once seemed so large begin to shrink. The doubts that once seemed so important begin to fade. The questions that once demanded answers lose their urgency. Because they are finally seeing the bigger picture. They are finally understanding what heaven has been trying to reveal through every quiet moment, every unanswered question, every lingering thought. The detail about your appearance that captured their attention was never the destination. It was only the beginning of a journey. A journey that led them beyond appearances. Beyond assumptions. Beyond surface-level understanding. And what they found there was something far more valuable. They found your spirit. Your character. Your resilience. Your heart. They found the qualities that remain when everything superficial falls away. And those qualities have left a deeper impression than they ever expected. Yet there is still a reason this message is reaching you today. Because there is something they have not fully expressed. A realization that has been growing quietly inside them. At first, it was only a whisper. Then it became a feeling. Now it is becoming a certainty. They are beginning to understand that the thing they once worried about may have blinded them to something extraordinary. Not because the concern was wrong. But because it was incomplete. They were looking at one small detail while heaven was inviting them to see the whole person. And the whole person is far more beautiful than they realized. Far more remarkable. Far more worthy of appreciation. That realization has humbled them. It has softened them. It has changed them. And in many ways, it has prepared them for what comes next. Because soon, they will face a choice. A choice between continuing to hide their deeper feelings. Or allowing honesty to take its place. A choice between remaining silent. Or speaking from the heart. A choice between fear and connection. The answer may not arrive overnight. But the direction is becoming clearer. The walls are coming down. The confusion is fading. And the truth is rising to the surface. The truth that has been waiting patiently beneath every thought, every concern, every unanswered question. A truth so simple that it almost feels unbelievable. The more they have come to know you, the more they have come to value you. And the more they value you, the less they care about the thing that once worried them. Because something stronger has taken its place. Something that cannot be measured by appearance. Something that cannot be explained by logic alone. Something that grows quietly, steadily, and powerfully within the human heart. And in the final part, you will discover the message their heart has been trying to deliver all along. The message hidden beneath every silence, every glance, and every unspoken emotion. A message that changes the meaning of this entire journey.